After processing the fact that someone called the police on me, believe it or not, this has never happened to me in my life. I tweeted back, I wrote, "Officer, I'd like to report a joke." Wearing a mask while Senator Cruz replied to this, that was not written to him, "Bizarre, 535 members of Congress can attend the State of the Union without wearing masks, still not good enough for Hollywood." Hey, you know, all these crazy people in Congress, all of these low IQ individuals in Congress right now, there's one guy who's responsible for that, and that's Donald Trump.
Jimmy Kimmel just turned Marjorie Taylor Greene's police complaint over a joke into comedic gold. From Jewish space lasers to the Gaspacho Police, you won't believe how Kimmel used her own words against her to create one of his sharpest takedowns yet. What's the joke that has her so rattled? Let's find out. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. What kind of joke could get a sitting congresswoman so upset that she'd actually file a police report over it? Well, leave it to Jimmy Kimmel to push Marjorie Taylor Greene into what might be one of the most bizarre public meltdowns we've seen. It all started with a seemingly harmless punchline. During one of his monologues, Kimmel aimed his comedy crosshairs at Greene with a joke that referenced Will Smith's now infamous Oscar slap. He quipped that someone should slap Greene, suggesting Will Smith for the job.
This afternoon, she wrote, "You weren't joking. You hide your misogyny and your racism behind your jokes on ABC. This was a dog whistle to the violent left to assault me or worse, and you're," misspelled "you're," of course, she tweets. After she saw it, she tweeted, "ABC contacts my employer. This threat of violence against me by Jimmy Kimmel has been filed with the Capitol Police." She called the police. If she's gonna report me to the police, if that's how she wants to play it, I'll report you right back. And I won't go to the police. I'll go to the Justice League.
Now, most of the audience laughed because, you know, it's a joke. That's what comedians do, but it turns out Greene doesn't seem to find herself funny. Instead of letting it roll off her back like most public figures would when they become late-night fodder, Greene didn't laugh. She didn't even respond with her typical dramatic Twitter post. Nope, she went straight to law enforcement. That's right, Greene picked up the phone and called the Capitol Police, claiming she was the victim of a threat. Imagine the look on their faces as they listened to this. She's sitting there trying to convince them that a comedian on a late-night show was issuing some coded call to violence. Kimmel, armed with a microphone and sarcasm, somehow became public enemy #1 in Greene's world. Honestly, how many jokes have emerged from that Capitol Police report alone? But Greene didn't stop there. Oh no, her response became a public spectacle. She whipped up her victim narrative into overdrive, rushing to Twitter to dramatize her outrage. She tweeted directly at Kimmel, calling him a woman-hating activist. Woman-hating activist. About Jimmy Kimmel, the guy who's been hosting a comedy show for years with a pretty solid record of making fun of both men and women equally. Let's be real, it's not exactly a groundbreaking take for a politician to try controlling how they're depicted in the media. But Greene not only turned up the heat, she somehow tipped the saucepan completely over. This whole situation feels even more ironic when you put Greene's reaction next to her public persona. This is the same congresswoman who regularly calls people snowflakes for being overly sensitive. The same Marjorie Taylor Greene who's boasted about her willingness to speak her mind, no matter how offensive or provocative her statements may be. Whether she's talking about Jewish space lasers sparking California's wildfires or referring to Democrats as a death cult, Greene has never exactly held back her opinions, controversial or otherwise. Yet when she became the subject of a joke on a late-night program, suddenly it's too far. Suddenly it's serious enough to call the cops.
On our show Tuesday night, MTG, Clan Mom as we call her, earlier in the day, called 3 of her fellow Republicans pro-pedophile for supporting Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's nomination. This woman, you may remember, she's the one who endorsed fringe conspiracy theories and repeatedly indicated support for executing prominent Democratic politicians. Now she's dialing 911 because she got made fun of.
First, new evidence tonight that we, you, the American people, all of us, we were all lied to.
Frankly, we did win this election.
We were lied to by Joe Biden.
The internet exploded. Memes featuring Greene as a second-rate Riddler started popping up all over social media. People shared mock-up comic panels, sarcastic reenactments of her calling the Capitol Police, and captions like, "Will the budget Riddler get the last laugh?" Tune in next time. It was as though Kimmel's letter gave everyone permission to join in on the joke. In some of these memes, Greene was photoshopped onto Batman villains in hilarious ways. One had her holding a sign that read, "Help, words are scary," while another turned her complaint letter to the Capitol Police into a comic dialogue bubble complete with dramatic shading. The internet was having the time of its life, and the joke was no longer just about Kimmel versus Greene. It became a shared cultural moment that made Greene herself the punchline. The timing of the letter was just as important as its content. Kimmel knew how to capitalize on a viral moment. The fact that he responded so quickly, while the story was still fresh in everyone's mind, ensured the letter would reach as many people as possible. Late night hosts don't just write jokes. They're in the business of creating moments that people will share, talk about, and meme to death. And this moment, it was gold. By tying Greene's actions to something as universally recognizable as Batman and the Riddler, Kimmel didn't only reinforce how ridiculous her reaction was, but he also made the situation entertaining to people who might not even follow politics. That's the power of a smart pop culture reference. It broadens the appeal. What made this even better was how perfectly the tone of the letter matched the general perception of Greene. This is a politician who's known for saying outlandish things like blaming wildfires on Jewish space lasers, or accidentally referring to the Gaspacho Police instead of the Gestapo. Kimmel's Batman letter didn't just land because it mocked her actions. It landed because it mirrored how many people already saw her. The Budget Riddler nickname stuck because it felt true in a way that resonated outside of partisan politics. Her exaggerated actions made her an easy target, and Kimmel's masterful use of satire turned what could have been a forgettable controversy into a cultural touchstone. Let's talk about why this worked so well beyond just the surface level humor. Humor has a way of cutting through noise, especially when it's rooted in satire. The Batman letter wasn't simply Kimmel cracking jokes. It was a clever, multi-layered response that mocked Greene while also exposing how disproportionate her reaction was.
Well, that's nice. She thinks I have fans. I guess that's good. But now listen, not only don't I condone death or any kind of threats against anyone, especially as I get dozens of them a week myself. Note to Jimmy Kimmel, not only would Marjorie Taylor Greene's husband make quick work of you, but Rep. MTG herself would make quick work of you. Kimmel would not last too long if he were interested in engaging in unprovoked, terrible violence against this Congresswoman.
Obama, amnesty. Amnesty, Obama, amnesty.
What kind of president needs a note card to answer a basic and predictable question?
There's a reason people kept sharing it. It said what so many were already thinking, but did it in a way that felt universal. Whether you're a die-hard Kimmel fan or someone who doesn't watch late-night TV, you could appreciate the absurdity of the whole situation. And that's what great comedy does. It brings people together in laughter, even if only for a moment. But the genius of the letter isn't just in how funny it was, it's in how it flipped the power dynamic. Greene might have gone to the Capitol Police hoping to intimidate Kimmel, but with a single letter, he turned the tables. Suddenly, she wasn't the victim fighting a big bad comedian, she was part of the joke. And once the internet took hold of it, there was no going back. The conversation wasn't about whether Kimmel had gone too far, it was about how far Greene had escalated something that didn't need to be escalated at all. Instead of silencing him, her actions gave him, and the rest of the world, more material to work with. By the time the dust settled, Kimmel had done more than just defend himself. He'd made Greene's attempt to shut down his joke look petty and absurd, and he'd managed to entertain millions in the process. The Batman letter will probably go down as one of the most effective clapbacks in late-night history, because instead of just making fun of Greene, Kimmel used humor to show what her priorities were, and the public ate it up. Of course, Kimmel didn't stop there. Since Greene couldn't take a joke, he decided it was the perfect time to remind everyone of all the jokes she'd provided him with over the years, like her infamous comments about the Gaspacho Police and the space lasers. If Greene wasn't prepared to laugh at herself yet, things were about to get much, much harder for her. What happens when a comedian holds up a mirror to your most bizarre and inexplicable words? In Marjorie Taylor Greene's case, it wasn't just unflattering, it was devastating. Jimmy Kimmel didn't need to craft an elaborate roast from scratch. Instead, he leaned on perhaps the easiest, most effective tool in comedy, using Greene's own infamous statements to let the punchlines write themselves. For someone who's built a public image on bold, controversial rhetoric, it turns out her words become a lot harder to defend when they're thrown back at her with a bit of comedic flair. Let's start with one of Kimmel's favorite targets, Greene's now legendary Jewish space lasers conspiracy theory. She had floated this bizarre idea to explain wildfires in California, pointing the finger at a massive space-based laser conspiracy somehow involving wealthy Jewish people. Yes, this is a thing she said. Kimmel wasted no time turning it into recurring comedic gold. Every time Greene made another controversial statement, Kimmel would pull space lasers back into the conversation as if it were her personal trademark. He even joked that maybe Greene was late to vote in Congress one day because her death ray needed a tune-up. The crowd loved it because how could they not? It's absurd, it's ridiculous, and importantly, it's her own creation. All Kimmel had to do was sprinkle in his sarcasm, and the audience was laughing at Greene long before he even finished the punchline. And who could forget the Gaspacho Police incident? Greene accidentally mashed up the Gestapo, the infamous Nazi secret police, with Gaspacho, the cold Spanish soup. Kimmel latched onto this slip-up like a kid diving into a candy jar. In one monologue, he described her as a woman so passionate about justice that she's willing to order soup-based law enforcement. The imagery alone had people crying with laughter. Online, the jokes wrote themselves. Someone even posted a fake wanted poster for the Gaspacho Police featuring Greene herself as America's most wanted soup vigilante. Once again, Kimmel didn't have to stretch the truth. He just framed her own words in a way that made the absurdity impossible to ignore. But his roasting didn't stop at these hilariously misguided statements. He also dug into her book, simply titled MTG. Kimmel noted how the book's Amazon listing looked more like a political pity project than a best-selling memoir, and he mocked it as full of revisionist history and conspiracy theories. Kimmel tossed in a line that it was so poorly written, the book probably references Wikipedia more than twice. His jokes were a reminder that Greene had spent plenty of time making bombastic claims about liberal conspiracies, but when it came time to articulate her side in print, few people seemed all that interested. Kimmel also took aim at Greene's January 6th committee comments. At one point, she suggested creating a new committee to investigate the existing one, seemingly out of frustration with how the original January 6th investigations exposed uncomfortable truths for her political allies. Kimmel didn't let this slide. He called it her dumbest idea yet, mocking the sheer absurdity of reliving the Capitol riot in any way that could be painted as helpful to Greene's messaging. His take on it was simple. If after 2 years of conspiracies, the best idea you have is let's do it all again, you're practically begging to be made fun of. Beyond the jokes though, Kimmel's approach wasn't just about punchlines, it was about exposing how outlandish her rhetoric truly was. When late night comedy calls out political statements, it's not just about making people laugh. It shapes public perception, often in ways that are impossible to recover from. Greene's public missteps became comedy cannonballs in Kimmel's skillful hands, and each time he repeated her statements with a mocking tone, he cemented her reputation as someone who often says the quiet part way too loud. By holding up a mirror to her words, Kimmel ensured Greene's own behavior became the star of the joke, and the more defensive she got, the funnier it all seemed. The real kicker though was how the internet amplified everything. Memes about Jewish space lasers and Gaspacho Police spread across social media faster than Greene could launch another tweet. Kimmel's jokes ripped through YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok, each bit landing as perfectly clipped moments for audiences to share and remix. Suddenly, it wasn't just Kimmel skewering Greene, it was the world. Instead of being the strong and defiant figure she tried to portray herself as, Greene became the face of one giant ongoing roast. And the beauty of comedy in the internet age is how it snowballs. A quip about her space lasers on late night TV becomes a viral tweet, which turns into a parody video, which then inspires someone's Halloween costume 3 months later. It's a ripple effect, and Greene handed Kimmel, and everyone else, all the material they needed to keep it going. What made this meltdown especially noteworthy was how it backfired so seamlessly. Greene's goal in complaining about Kimmel's original joke was to frame herself as the victim, but with every reference he made to her bizarre past comments, Kimmel pulled the spotlight back onto her own words instead. Each time he quoted her, he drove home the point. This wasn't some cruel smear campaign. She said these things, and no amount of outrage tweets or Capitol Police complaints could overshadow that fact. Instead, her attempts to shut down the jokes only gave them more life. The result? Greene made herself more of a target than ever. Kimmel didn't stoke the fire, she handed him the matches. For comedians like Jimmy Kimmel, these moments are a dream, where the material practically writes itself and the punchlines hit so perfectly it feels scripted. And Greene's refusal to laugh at herself only made the whole situation even funnier. But as for the bigger lesson here, when politicians try to silence comedians, they often get the exact opposite of what they were hoping for. For Greene, the joke wasn't just on her, it was her. Marjorie Taylor Greene wanted to turn Jimmy Kimmel's joke into a crusade, but instead, she handed him a megaphone to amplify her flaws. Politicians who try to censor comedians often forget one thing: comedy thrives where hypocrisy exists. Greene's wild claims about Jewish space lasers and her overreaction to a harmless joke didn't just expose her contradictions, they made her the joke. Kimmel showed how humor can disarm, revealing truths in a way facts alone can't. So what other political feuds were reshaped by comedy? Because if there's one thing this proves, it's that a punchline can pack a punch.